Hello everyone. In the previous episode, we talked about how Paro realized that the Jews had left Egypt. Hashem went before the nation with a pillar of clouds by day and a pillar of fire by night to show them the way. Suddenly Paro regretted it. He didn't want to lose all his slaves, so he decided to chase after them with his entire army. Mighty horses, chariots, and armed soldiers all racing quickly after the Jewish people. The Jews reached the Red Sea and didn't know what to do. On one side the sea, and on the other the Egyptians were approaching. They began to shout at Moshe and Aaron, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt? Are there not enough graves in Egypt for us to die there? Did you have to bring us all the way here to die? We already told you, let us serve the Egyptians so at least we can live and not die." Moshe stood before them and said, "Now you will see the salvation of God. You will no longer see the Egyptians. Hashem will fight for you, and you shall dwell in peace." At that moment, Hashem said to Moshe, "Moshe, move forward. This is not the time to pray. Lift your staff over the sea, and it will split into two. I will ensure that the Egyptians enter it and drown." The Jewish people were traveling forwards, while the Egyptians were shooting arrows at them. But the pillar of clouds absorbed the arrows and prevented the Jews from being harmed. Now the Jews are standing at the Red Sea, but the sea has not yet parted. Nachshon ben Aminadav decides to enter the rough sea and advances until the water reaches his nose. He cries out to God, Master of the universe, "The situation is unbearable." And immediately the sea parted. Wow, what a miracle. The Red Sea stood up extremely high so that the entire world could see the miracle. And all the waters in the world split into two as well. The Jews began to walk on dry land through the sea. Some say that the water split into 12 paths and each tribe passed through its own path. Along the way, they had food, fruit trees, and all kinds of good things. Paro and the wicked Egyptians did not give up. More accurately, God didn't give up on them. Instead, he hardened their hearts, and they entered the sea with their horses and chariots. What a mess it was. The water and sand created mud, and the horses couldn't move. The chariots sank. And immediately, when the Jewish people reached the other side and exited the sea, Hashem told Moshe to lift the staff again. And suddenly, the waters began to return to their place. The Egyptians tried to escape, but it was too late. The sea closed in on them from all directions. The Egyptians realized that God was fighting for the Jews, but it was already too late for them. The waters covered the entire Egyptian army. The horses, the chariots, the soldiers, none of them remained. That was the end of those who oppressed the Jews for 210 years. The Jews stood on the shore and saw everything that happened. They saw the bodies of the Egyptians on the shore, and the reason for this was so they wouldn't be afraid and think that maybe the Egyptians escaped from another side and would continue to chase them. At that moment, they realized how great the miracle was that Hashem had done for them. They were full of joy and gratitude to God for the miracles and wonders, and they began to sing Shirah. The entire people, men, women, and children, sang this special song together, praising Hashem for the miraculous salvation. Then Moshe and the Jewish people sang this song to God, "For very exalted is He." What an event, and what miracles God performed for the Jewish nation. Now the Jews faced a new challenge. They had no water to drink. They arrived at a place called Marah, but the water there was very bitter. The people complained to Moshe. God showed Moshe a special tree and told him, "Throw the tree into the water." Moshe threw it, and immediately the water became sweet and delicious. Hashem promised the Jews that if they follow the path of the Torah, he will protect them from all the diseases that were in Egypt. Now, the food they brought from Egypt ran out. The Jews were hungry, but they complained again. God wasn't angry. He understood they were hungry. So he sent them meat. It's called quail. Flocks of quail arrived at the camp in the evening, and in the morning they found something amazing on the ground. The mun. It was a unique food, white and thin, like frost, that God sent them from the heavens. The mun was a miraculous food. It was delicious, and everyone tasted in it the flavor they loved. They had to gather it every morning, and on Friday they collected double because on Shabbat the mun did not fall. It was an opportunity to strengthen their faith and trust in God. The Jewish people continued their journey, and when they reached Rephidim, once again there was no water. They began complaining to Moshe. God told Moshe to strike the rock with his staff. Moshe struck the rock, and suddenly water flowed from the rock. At that time, an enemy came to fight with the Jews called Amalek. They attacked the Jewish people. Moshe sent Yehoshua to fight them, and he went up to the top of the hill with Aaron and Hur. When Moshe raised his hands, the Jews were victorious. When he lowered them, Amalek prevailed. Aaron and Hur helped Moshe keep his hands up until sunset, and so the Jews won the battle. Hashem told Moshe to write this in a book so that everyone would remember that God will always fight against Amalek and destroy them from the world. And so, through all the miracles and challenges, the Jewish nation came to believe in Hashem and trust in Him. They understood that Hashem is always with them, even when it's tough. And this gave them the strength to continue their long journey to the land of Israel. What happened after the battle with Amalek? We'll tell you about that in the next episode.